This was one of those films. I played a midnight screening at Cannes, which is where Strictly Ballroom, in fact, it first took off. And the PR campaign for this is very similar to the campaign for Muriel's Wedding, which was, if you remember, that was a kind of, an oddball Antipodean movie with quite sort of dark, strange, raggedy, underbelly, but was sold very much as pink, frothy, jolly, and, had the hand of the Weinsteins all over it in terms of marketing, that very smart marketing about taking a film which has got some sort of strange edges and selling it as something which is just entirely frothy and fun. And it's very similar with this. Which, of course, the Weinsteins are involved in selling this, and it looks like they've backed a winner. Like Argo, it's 60s, 70s history. It's, not too distant history, and it has its roots in a real story with which dramatic liberties have certainly been taken. But the underlying story is basically, at the very beginning of it, we get a kind of history lesson about the persecution of the Aboriginal people in Australia. Then we end up at the end of the film with photographs of the real people about whom the story that we've seen is based on. So all the way through it's saying, I know that some of this seems outlandish, but the fact of the matter is this is a real story. So as pop movies go, you've seen the trailer for this, right? You've seen the trailers already, and there's posters everywhere. It's got more in common with The Commitments than it has with Dreamgirls, and there's obviously a touch of Good Morning Vietnam and actually For the Boys, that Bette Midler film, which I really, really like. So the story is, it's got its roots in a stage play from 2004 by Tony Briggs, whose mother, Laura Robinson, was part of a girl group who basically, broke racial divides to entertain the troops in Vietnam in the late 1960s. The story is they start out as I'm going to say this wrongly for the Antipodean audience, the Khmer Ganja songbirds. There's a gag about nobody else being able to say that. And they turn up at a club where there's a talent competition, and what they're going to do is they're going to sing country and westerns. And Chris O'Dowd, of course, now most famous for Bridesmaids, is the MC, who looks like he's been washed up from some cruise liner, and he's just somehow ended up in the back end of Beyond, hosting the talent competition, where they go down very badly because they're the wrong colour as far as the audience are concerned. A, to be singing those songs, and B, to be there. Here's a clip.
Okay, last up. Hello. We've got couple of sisters who tell me that they're from down the road a bit in a place called Cromaranj.
G'day, folks. Thanks for the heartfelt applause. You can find something else to do. We don't need you. I'm Gail. This is Cynthia. And, just so as you know, you're all standing on blackfella country.
We're the Cumaragunja songbirds. Here's a Merle Haggard tune. Hope to God you like it.
Today I started loving you again.
So essentially, they start out doing that, and the whole audience is terribly sniffy, and nobody responds to them at all. And the Chris O'Dowd character says, "You're playing the wrong kind of music." He actually says 90% of all recorded music is not good. The other 10% is soul. And he then gets them to do sort of Stax Motown Atlantic and says, I can sell you, if we go out onto it. And they do. And then what follows is what would on some levels look like a fairly formulaic kind of, Dreamgirls-like story of a girl group going out and making it, but is always made into something different by the fact that it does have this very, very interesting and thoroughly run through racial story, which essentially does, for their situation, what was happening with the African-American situation, it ties all those things together, has a bunch of really sort of barnstorming, production numbers in which we get to hear these songs, that are really well performed, but all the way through there is this proper underlying story about the mistreatment of the people, the way in which actually what they're doing is breaking down racial barriers, the fact that all the way through they're having to fight a battle to be accepted, and the battle is played out in a way which on the one hand deadly serious, and on the other hand is beautifully comically pitched, which is you start out singing Merle Haggard, and you say, you can't sing that. Well, why not? Because that's not the kind of music that you should be playing. Now, the interesting thing with the film is it's got lots of raggedy edges, there's lots of loose ends, there's lots of plot points that don't quite tie up, there's lots of things in which you have to take a leap of faith. For one moment the girls aren't able to go off and turn, and the next moment, one phone call later, yes, suddenly they are. And there are a load of things like that are rough around the edges. But, and I think this is the crucial thing, that old saying about that you'll how does it work? That
well, you don't know the old
hold
saying.
on. You'll chide your enemy for crossing their knife and fork, but you will forgive your friend for eating with their hands.
You've just made that up.
No, I haven't.
No, I've never heard of it, nor has anyone else.
Fine, please tweet me. I think everybody else has heard that. What it means is, if you like something, you'll forgive it. If you don't like it, you'll come down on it for the... In the case of the Sapphires...
Run the expression past me again.
And it goes, you will chide your enemy for crossing their knife and fork, but forgive your friend for eating with their hands.
Right, I think it's very wise.
Thank you.
I hadn't heard it before, but I like what you're saying.
Okay, but in the case of this, despite all those raggedy things that are, narratively a little bit, just don't quite work, it doesn't matter. Because what happens is you think this story it's a really good story to tell. It's got really good musical production numbers. The cast are terrific, and you believe in them absolutely. The comedy is played just about on the, it's just the right tenor of this has got an edge to it. There is real racism involved in here that we're dealing with, but it's okay. It's not becoming preachy. And the story genuinely feels like, okay, fine, I'm with this, I'm going with it, that's all fine. And so all the problems go on the outside. And that's interesting because when you end up with that poster, which just makes it look like, it's Chris O'Dowd going like that and people in spangly dresses, that doesn't say anything about actually what it's about is Aboriginal rights, what it's about is, political advice, what it's about is racism, what it's about is civil rights. It doesn't say that. What it says is, what it's about is people in spangly dresses singing songs that you're really going to love. And on one level, it is that. But it is also this other thing. And because it manages to bring those two things together, all the things that are wrong with it, the raggedy edges, you think, I don't care, I don't mind, because it's a good-hearted, big, show-stopping movie that works.